Ladies and gentlemen, we will now begin the Asan Symposium, celebrating Korea-US relations, 140 years and beyond. First, Dr. MJ Chung, the honorary chairman of the Asan Institute for Policy Studies, will give a welcoming remarks. Please welcome Dr. Chung with warm rounds of applause.
Did you like the movie? I myself did not see the movie before. I never intervened in the production. That's the reason why it turned out to be a good movie. Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. I hope you had a good sleep last night and good breakfast this morning. 우리 크리스토퍼 델 코소 미국 대사 대리님, 에드윈 플루너 박사님, 카렌 하우스 여사님. During dinner yesterday evening, Karen had to leave our dinner meeting in the middle of the dinner because she went to a medical hospital yesterday morning and they informed her the test result turned out to be inconclusive. So Karen had to leave dinner yesterday evening and went to another hospital. And this morning, the hospital informed us the outcome is more or less okay. So where is Karen? Where is Karen? Well, Karen is over there. Let's wish her good health. Thank you. Karen told us she wanted to sit down in the back. 바쁘신 일정과 먼 길을 마다하지 않고 이 자리에 참석해 주신 여러분에게 감사드립니다. 양해해 주시면 영어로 말씀드리도록 하겠습니다. 마이크 잘 들리나요? 이게 좀 높았으면 좋겠네요. This year marks the 140th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between Korea and the United States. 140 years ago, on May 22nd, 1882, the United States and Korea, who was then called the Kingdom of Joseon, signed the Treaty of Peace, Amity, Commerce, and Navigation to mark the beginning of diplomatic relations. It is very meaningful that President Yoon Suk-yeol and President Biden held their first summit on May 21st, one day before the anniversary. There is a Western proverb, a man can be known by his friends. So, as a country of liberal democracy, it is important for us to know who are the friends of Korea. From Korean perspective, the United States is a country located far away on the other side of the Pacific Ocean. But the United States is our close friend with whom we share the values of freedom, democracy, and market economy. In the 20th century, Korea experienced two great tragedies, the Japanese occupation and the Korean War. It was the United States who ended Japan's occupation of Korea and fought against communist invasion during the Korean War. This is why our relationship with the United States is described a blood-forged alliance. We also want to become good friends of China and Japan, who are geographically very close and share the Confucian culture. But it remains to be seen whether our hope can be realized. While Japan is a liberal democracy, we have an unfortunate history with them. Japan has given us two historic ordeals. Japanese ruler Toyotomi Hideyoshi invaded the kingdom of Joseon twice in 1592 and 1597. During the War of 7 Years, 500 Korean civilians were killed and another 400,000 civilians were abducted to Japan. Some of my friends here advised me not to mention this event, his tragedy. It was several hundred years ago, but hundreds of thousands Koreans suffered. In the 20th century, Japan occupied Korea for 36 years. During the occupation, 2 million Koreans suffered as forced labor. 200,000 men were conscripted to fight for Japan, and 200,000 Korean women suffered as comfort women. The painful past has left deep scars in the minds of many Koreans. China, with whom we established diplomatic relations 30 years ago, China is geographically and culturally close to Korea. Buddhism, one of the major religions in South Korea, and Confucianism had come to Korea from China. China is our largest trading partner today. China is a military ally of North Korea, who is threatening us every day with nuclear weapons. Under this situation, we wonder whether China can be our reliable friend. In 1945, World War II ended and Korea was liberated from Japanese colonial rule. At that time, the political situation surrounding the Korean Peninsula was in flux. In 1948, the Republic of Korea was established, and the United Nations recognized the Republic of Korea as the sole lawful government on the Korean Peninsula. When Japan surrendered in August 1945, Mao Zedong's Communist Party and Chiang Kai-shek's Kuomintang started a civil war in China. China became a communist country in 1949. Right after the establishment of a communist regime in China in January 1950, the United States committed the blunder announcing the Acheson Line, which excluded South Korea from the U.S. defense perimeter in the Far East. 6 months after the announcement, North Korea started the Korean War on June 25th. Within 3 days of the war, North Korea took over Seoul, and within a month, most of South Korea, except the southern port city, Busan, fell under the control of North Korea. But under the flag of the United Nations, 16 countries such as the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, Turkey, Australia, France, New Zealand, and the Philippines dispatched 340,000 troops. This is a very important number, 340,000 troops. 6 countries, Sweden, Norway, Denmark, Germany, Italy, and India provided medical units. The UN forces fought back and turned the tide of war. Thanks to General MacArthur's successful Incheon landing, the UN could take back Seoul. The South Korean and UN forces continued to advance north toward the Chinese border. In October 1950, Chinese intervened with 1 million soldiers. The UN forces fought very hard to stop them at the current military demarcation line. During the war, 34,000 American soldiers died. 140,000 South Korean soldiers died. South Korean civilian casualties numbered over a million. I was born in the city of Busan in 1951 during the Korean War. Had it not been for the intervention of the United States, I would not be here today. I would like to take this opportunity to express my sincere gratitude to the US and all the countries who helped us a lot. Thank you. This is the picture of my family taken during the war in Busan. Can you see a small baby in the middle of the picture? That's me, and my mother and my father right behind my mother and the grandmother, and all the family members taken during the Korean War in Busan. And next picture, please. This is a picture taken at my father's home around 35 years ago. And you can see how many people there are. My father in the middle and myself on the right and at the back of the picture, my wife at the left end of the picture at the back. And you can tell the difference of atmosphere between the first one in Busan and the second one in Seoul. So Korea developed a lot. Okay, thank you. Now, back to my transcript. At the Korean War Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C., the inscription says, "Our nation honors sons and daughters who answered the call to defend a country they never knew and a people they never met." The United States and South Korea signed the Mutual Defense Treaty in 1953 after the war. Religion and education have brought Korea and the United States closer. During the Enlightenment period, as new culture was introduced, Korean people opened their eyes to a new world, and Christianity began to take root in Korea. The United States also introduced modern education system by establishing so many institutes. For example, Baeje University, Baeje Hakdang in Korean, Ihwa Women's University, now the largest women's university in the world, Sungsil University, Baehwa Women's University, Yeonse University, Kaemyeong University, and 11 seminary schools. 신학대학도 11개나 또 세웠습니다. The people who studied at these universities have contributed to Korea's development a lot. The ROK-US alliance has served as a free world's bulwark against the wind of communism from the best Eurasian continent. In 1951, during the Korean War, British newspaper, The Times, ran a condescending editorial saying that it would be more reasonable to expect to find roses growing on a garbage heap than a healthy democracy rising out of the ruins of Korea. But this prediction of the Times was proven very wrong. 35 years after the Korean War, South Korea hosted the Seoul Summer Olympic Game in 1988, co-hosted the FIFA World Cup football tournament with Japan in 2002. In 1953, after the Korean War, the per capita GDP of South Korea was $67. Today, South Korea is a liberal democracy and the world's 10th largest economy with 35,000 per capita income. Now, let me ask a simple question. How good is global politics today? I'm afraid today's world is very similar to the world of 140 years ago. South Korea finds itself once again caught in the middle of a big power competition between the US and China. Today, global concern is that Korea's two big neighbors, China and Russia are moving toward a system of one-man rule by changing the Communist Party rule and the Russian constitution respectively. In the process, Chinese and Russian system, I'm afraid, seem to become more closed than ever. People are free to choose the political system they like. However, it is a matter of global concern whether their choices contribute to the peace and stability of the world or not. I sincerely hope that China and Russia can be friends of the international community. While we are concerned about the future of China, my French friend, very intellectual guy, Guy Sorman, have you heard of the name? Recently wrote an article, China's Impossible Dream of Order. According to his observation, China is much behind the United States in both hard power and soft power. He claims that China has neither the intention nor the capacity to become the enemy or competitor of the United States. He wrote, China only demands the place it deserves. This is of the order of negotiation, not of war. If he is correct, I hope the United States and China can work together to solve the global issue of North Korean nuclear problem. 140 years ago, our ancestors shunned themselves from the tide of history and suffered great ordeals. Today, amid the turbulent situation around the Korean Peninsula, we must think hard about who are our friends. The South Korean government under President Yoon Suk-yeol will develop the ROK-US alliance into a comprehensive strategic alliance based on liberal democracy. Based on this, we will also try to improve our relation with China and Japan. German philosopher Nietzsche, 이 발음이 어렵더라고, Nietzsche. Have you heard of the name Nietzsche? Nietzsche once said, "He who has a why to live can bear any harm. If we know the why to live, we can overcome any kind of challenges." Okay, thank you very much. And please remember that we'll meet again in 2032 to celebrate 150 years of Korea-US relations. Thank you very much.